Today we are going to know in brief about all the plays Shakespeare has ever written. His plays are divided into four halves. From the time period of 1588 to 1593, 1594 to 1600, 1601 to 1608, and from 1608 to 1612. We are going to start off with 1558 to 1593. The very first play is Henry VI. It's written in three parts. It's a historical play. The part 1 deals with the loss of England's French territories and the political plots and schemes leading to the War of the Roses. Part 2 depicts the king's inability to quell the bickering of his nobles. Part 3 deals with the horrors of such conflict. Its authorship is contested to be written by Shakespeare alone. However, he has definitely contributed in some manner in this play. The second one is Titus Andronicus. This play is believed to be the first tragedy by Shakespeare, and it is one of the least respected plays due to its graphic violence. Titus, a general in the Roman army, presents Thamora, queen of gods, as a slave to the new Roman emperor Saturninus. Saturninus takes her as his wife. From this position, Thamora vows revenge against Titus for killing her son. Titus and his family retaliate, leading to a cycle of violence. The third play is Love's Labour's Lost. It is one of Shakespeare's early comedy. It follows the King of Navarre and his three companions as they attempt to swear off the company of women for 3 years in order to focus on study and fasting. The subsequent infatuation with the Princess of France and her ladies makes them forsworn, that is, break their oath. In an untraditional ending for a comedy, the play closes with the death of the princess's father, and all weddings are delayed for a year. The fourth play is The Two Gentlemen of Verona. It's a comedy play where two friends, Valentine and Proteus, travel from Verona. Proteus betrays Valentine for love, but later regrets it. In the end, friendship and love are restored, and all is forgiven. One of the funniest scenes in Two Gentlemen of Verona is Act 2, Scene 3, featuring Launch, the clownish servant of Proteus, and his dog, Crab. The fifth play is The Comedy of Errors. It tells the story of two sets of identical twins who were accidentally separated at birth. Antipholus of Syracuse and his servant Dromio of Syracuse arrive in Ephesus, which turns out to be the home of their twin brothers, Antipholus of Ephesus and his servant Dromio of Ephesus. When the Syracusans encounter the friends and families of their twins, a series of wild mishaps based on mistaken identities lead to wrongful beatings, a near seduction, the arrest of Antipholus of Ephesus, and false accusations of infidelity, theft, madness, and demonic possession. The sixth play is A Midsummer Night's Dream. It's a comedy play. The play is set in Athens and consists of several subplots that revolve around the marriage of Theseus and Hippolyta. One subplot involves a conflict among 4 Athenian lovers. Another follows a group of 6 amateur actors rehearsing the play which they are to perform before the wedding. Both groups find themselves in a forest inhabited by fairies who manipulate the humans and are engaged in their own domestic intrigue. The seventh play is a historical play, Richard III. It is the second longest play in the Shakespearean canon and is the longest of the first folio. The first folio is the collection of Shakespeare's plays, which was published in 1623, about 7 years after his death. And the last of this time frame is Romeo and Juliet. It is a tragedy about the romance between two young Italians from feuding families. It was among Shakespeare's most popular plays during his lifetime. Romeo and Juliet marry in secret and tragically die due to a series of misunderstandings. Their deaths reconcile their families. We will now move to the second phase of the time period from 1594 to 1600. The very first play is Richard II. It is a history play about the lifetime and reign of King Richard II of England. It chronicles the plots of the noblemen of the royal court who conspire, precipitate, and realize the downfall and death of the King of England. The second play is King John. It is also a history play about the reign of John, King of England. King John of England struggles to keep his throne amid disputes over succession, foreign threats from France, and church conflicts with the Pope. War, betrayal, and shifting alliances lead to political chaos. In the end, John is poisoned, his son Henry becomes king, and England survives, barely through unity against foreign invasion. The third play is The Merchant of Venice. A merchant in Venice named Antonio defaults on a large loan taken out on behalf of his dear friend Bassanio, and provided by a Jewish moneylender Shylock with seemingly inevitable fatal consequences. Although classified as a comedy in the first folio and sharing certain aspects with Shakespeare's other romantic comedies, the play is most remembered for its dramatic scenes. The fourth part is Henry IV, Part 1 and 2. The play dramatizes part of the reign of King Henry IV of England, beginning with the Battle of Homildon Hill late in 1402 and ending with King Henry's victory in the Battle of Shrewsbury in mid-1403. In parallel to the political conflict between King Henry and a rebellious faction of nobles, the play depicts the escapades of King Henry's son, Prince Hal, the future King Henry V, and his eventual return to court and favor. The fifth play is Henry V. It tells the story of King Henry V of England, focusing on events immediately before and after the Battle of Agincourt, 1415, during the 100 Years' War. The play is the final part of four related plays, preceded by Richard II, Henry IV Part 1, and Henry IV Part 2. The sixth play is The Taming of the Shrew. The main plot depicts the courtship of Petruchio and Katharina, the headstrong, obdurate shrew. Initially, Katharina is an unwilling participant in the relationship. However, Petruchio tames her with various psychological and physical torments, such as keeping her from eating and drinking, until she becomes a desirable, compliant, and obedient bride. The shrew refers to an unpleasant, ill-tempered woman. An obdurate means refusing to change one's mind. The seventh play is The Merry Wives of Windsor. Sir John Falstaff, short on money, decides to woo two respectable married women, Mistress Ford and Mistress Page, hoping to get at their husband's wealth. Unfortunately for him, the two friends compare his identical love letters and decide to play a series of humiliating pranks on him. The eighth play is Much Ado About Nothing. In it, two couples, Beatrice and Benedick, Claudio and Hero, face love, lies, and misunderstandings. A villain's plot is exposed. Reputations are restored and both pairs marry happily in the end. The ninth play is As You Like It. As You Like It follows its heroine Rosalind as she flees persecution in her uncle's court, accompanied by her cousin Celia to find safety and eventually love in the Forest of Arden. In the forest, they encounter a variety of memorable characters, notably the melancholy traveler Jacques, who speaks one of Shakespeare's most famous speeches, All the World's a Stage, and provides a sharp contrast to the other characters in the play, always observing and disputing the hardships of life in the country. And the 10th play is Twelfth Night. The play centers on the twins, Viola and Sebastian, who are separated in shipwreck. Viola, disguised as a page named Cesario, falls in love with the Duke Orsino, who in turn is in love with Countess Olivia. Upon meeting Viola, Countess Olivia falls in love with her, thinking she is a man. Moving on to the third phase of the time period from 1600 to 1608. The very first play is Julius Caesar. In the play, Brutus joins a conspiracy led by Cassius to assassinate Julius Caesar to prevent him from becoming a tyrant. Caesar's right-hand man, Antony, stirs up hostility against the conspirators, and Rome becomes embroiled in a dramatic civil war. The second is Hamlet. It is Shakespeare's longest play. Set in Denmark, the play depicts Prince Hamlet and his attempts to exact revenge against his uncle Claudius, who has murdered Hamlet's father in order to seize his throne and marry Hamlet's mother. The third play is All's Well That Ends Well. The play is considered one of Shakespeare's problem plays, those that pose ethical dilemmas that require more than typically simple solutions. A clever woman, Helena, cures the King of France and chooses the aloof Bertram as her husband. After he rejects her, she wins him back through wit and perseverance, ending in reconciliation. The fourth play is Measure for Measure. The play centers on the despotic and Puritan Angelo, a deputy entrusted to rule the city of Vienna in the absence of Duke Vincentio, who instead disguises himself as a humble friar to observe Angelo's regency and his citizens' lives. Angelo persecutes the young man Claudio for the crime of fornication, sentencing him to death on a technicality, only to fall madly in love with Claudio's sister Isabella, a chaste and innocent nun, when she comes to plead for her brother's life. The fifth play is Troilus and Cressida. At Troy during the Trojan War, Troilus and Cressida begin a love affair. Cressida is forced to leave Troy to join her father in the Greek camp. Meanwhile, the Greeks endeavor to lessen the pride of Achilles. The tone of the play alternates between bawdy comedy and tragic gloom. The sixth play is Othello. Set in Venice and Cyprus, the play depicts the Moorish military commander Othello as he is manipulated by his ensign Lago into suspecting his wife Desdemona of infidelity. Othello is widely considered one of Shakespeare's greatest works and is usually classified among his major tragedies. The seventh play is King Lear. It is loosely based on the mythological Lear of Britain. King Lear, in preparation for his old age, divides his power and land between his daughters Goneril and Regan, who pay homage to gain favor, feigning love. The king's third daughter, Cordelia, is offered a third of his kingdom also, but refuses to be insincere in her praise and affection. She instead offers the respect of her daughter and is disowned by Lear, who seeks flattery. Regan and Goneril subsequently break promises to host Lear and his entourage, so he opts to become homeless and destitute and goes insane. The eighth play is Macbeth. It dramatizes the physically violent and damaging psychological effects of political ambitions and power. In the play, a brave Scottish general named Macbeth receives a prophecy from a trio of witches that one day he will become king of Scotland. Consumed by ambition and spurred to violence by his wife Macbeth, murders the king and takes the Scottish throne for himself. Then, racked with guilt and paranoia, he commits further violent murders to protect himself from enmity and suspicion, soon becoming a tyrannical ruler. The bloodbath swiftly leads to insanity and finally death for the power-hungry couple. The ninth play is Antony and Cleopatra. The plot is based on Thomas North's 1579 English translation of Plutarch's Lives in ancient Greek and follows the relationship between Cleopatra and Mark Antony from the time of the Sicilian revolt to Cleopatra's suicide during the War of Actium. The main antagonist is Octavius Caesar, one of Antony's fellow triumvirs of the Second Triumvirate and the first emperor of the Roman Empire. The tragedy is mainly set in the Roman Republican and Ptolemaic Egypt and is characterized by swift shifts in geographical location and linguistic register as it alternates between sensual, imaginative Alexandria and a more pragmatic, austere Rome. The 10th play is Coriolanus. Coriolanus is the name given to a Roman general after his military feats against the Volscians at Corioli. Following his success, others encouraged Coriolanus to pursue the consulship, but his disdain for the plebeians and mutual hostility with the tribunes lead to his banishment from Rome. In exile, he presents himself to the Volscians, then leads them against Rome. After he relents and agrees to a peace with Rome, he is killed by his previous Volscian allies. The 11th and the last of this time period is Timon of Athens. Timon lavishes his wealth on parasitic companions until he is poor and rejected by them. He then denounces all of mankind and isolates himself in a cave in the wilderness. Moving on to the last part of the time period, from 1609 to 1612, the very first of this time period is Cymbeline, A Princess Imogen is falsely accused of infidelity, disguises herself as a boy, survives poisons and battles, and is reunited with her husband when the truth comes out, ending in multiple reconciliations. The second play is The Tempest, where a sorcerer, Prospero, uses magic to shipwreck his enemies, orchestrates reconciliations and his daughter's marriage, then forgives them and gives up his powers. The third is The Winter's Tale, in which a jealous king loses his wife and daughter, then years later is joyfully reunited with them when the truth is revealed. The fourth play is Pericles. A prince, Pericles, endures shipwrecks, loss of wife and daughter, and years of wandering before miraculously being reunited with both. The fifth and the last play that Shakespeare ever wrote was Henry VIII. King Henry VIII's political and personal maneuvers are portrayed, especially his break from Rome to marry Anne Boleyn. It unfolds amid court intrigue, ending with the birth of his daughter, Elizabeth I.